Hey, Banbaro!
Hello!
What's your favourite map?
Oh, the Hoarfrost Ridge.
See, I thought it would totally be that.
And the Wildspire Waste.
Okay, but you can only have one favourite.
And the Elder's Recess.
That's 3 out of 6 of the map.
And the Coral Highland.
Okay, I get the feeling you're gonna keep interrupting me.
And the Ancient Forest.
Yep, do the last one.
And the Rotten Vale. Theme song.
Fruit Wyvern's big adventure.
Imagine a world.
Seriously though, imagine a world of Monster Hunter World where the world is one world. I have already used my word budget for this entire video, haven't I? Today I want to discuss something rather fun, or perhaps is it, as we will see. Monster Hunter is all about having this natural living, breathing. As I struggle to literally do that! What the f***? Monster Hunter is all about having that natural, living, breathing world, an interconnected ecosystem twixt flora and fauna that the hunters like to meddle with sharp, pointy things. And that world has never been as vibrant and realized as it has in, well, World. And that has been the dream of the Monster Hunter team. They said Monster Hunter has never looked closer to their ideal, ultimate vision for what they wanted to do way back for Monster Hunter 1 than it does to this day. So if we take that at face value, one can assume that the ultimate goal, the end game, is to have not maps per se, not an ancient forest, not a coral highlands, not a wildspire waste, but just a world, right? You don't go to the ancient forest, you go to, well, the wild. You just enter it. You walk from Mastera and you can go to any part of the landmass as you travel, as you explore. So, for example, you could go from the very tippy top of the Rotten Vale where you can kind of see the Coral Highlands, but actually just transition into them just smoothly, right? Without changing air quotes map, it's just part of it. You could go to the very bottom of the Coral Highlands and just transition down into the Rotten Vale. They're essentially connected physically and visibly, you can see it. So just be able to move through it without having to go back and then load into the Rotten. I guess what I'm getting at is open world Monster Hunter. Because again, it's in the title, it always is supposed to be a world. So just one big landmass that has all 6 biome types sprawling and beautiful. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, doesn't that just sound like the Guiding Lands, but huge? And yeah, yes it does. And I think the Guiding Lands then is indeed a perfect model for what I am proposing, for what would be, I think, very cool. If you take that Guiding Lands, scale it to so each different biome section is at least as large as the actual map that it represents, then suddenly you have one hell of an experience, one hell of a world to explore, one hell of a melting pot of monsters. You could have one whole region be Elder Dragoned up, everything else has fleed, but then, you know, a region over, you have just a normal trio or maybe even 4 bump up the cap of large monsters milling around the place. You could have that actual proper mix and make it look like a real transitional landscape that you can journey across, not just kind of wing drake load in and out of different sections of it. And now I know what you might be thinking.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
And I will admit that there are a few, perhaps, well, issues with this. The first one, and I think the biggest glaring one, and it's one I openly do admit to, is if the map was just one big map, it would inherently quite likely change nothing about the experience of playing Monster. It wouldn't really enhance it past the novelty of being able to go everywhere without, you know, going back to base and loading into a new map. it doesn't do much for you, because you get a quest to hunt an Anjanath in the forest, you walk out of Astera into the forest, kill it, and then walk back. You've essentially just done an ancient forest hunt. So it doesn't really make the experience like, whoa, yeah! I love knowing that as I'm slaughtering this Anjanath, technically speaking, I could go say hi to Dodo Kama!
Hello?
So you kind of are left in a situation where if you just took current Monster Hunter and went, haha, the world is big and open now, you don't do anything but make it, well, harder on systems. So, talking of systems, the entire game would have to be built around this new way of displaying the environment. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? If you have to redesign, well, everything to actually encourage and make worthwhile this open world approach, are you still playing Monster Hunter? And I think there's two schools of thought on that front. If back in the day, when the old school was, well, the only Monster Hunter that we knew, the loading screens between sections of zones, the more arcadey feel, how it always used to be pre-World, and I was proposing the changes that World would make, I think definitely I would be getting a lot of, I mean, that's cool, but that's not Monster Hunter. And, you know, that would be fair enough at the time, but one thing we can all definitely say is World/Iceborne is very much Monster Hunter. It is made of the very DNA of it, and it is the most monstery Monster Hunter that has ever existed, and that's because it's gone in the direction the devs have wanted. So I have every faith that if they took it in this more open direction, which perhaps they do ideally want to, that still would very much feel Monster Hunter-y. But the question is, how do you support that kind of approach? I love the idea of how it would work with online play. I like the idea of, unless you turn the setting off, whenever you are playing, you are put in with, I don't know, let's say 15 other players, just kind of randomly spattered around in your instance of the continent. So, for example, 3 of you could be chilling in Astera, talking to the smithy, you know, the kind of gathering hub experience, but it's the whole town, and then the rest of you, the other 13, are spread out across the huge map. A couple people fighting in the recess together. There's a dude exploring Orthros Reach trying to find endemic life. There's someone in the forest picking mushrooms, you know, that kind of thing. So that when you're out doing your hunts, and hunts would definitely have to sort of change too, but either way, when you're out doing your hunt, you might be there going toe-to-toe with this crazy, vicious, flaming beast of legend, and he might swing you smashing through a tree trunk, and you land next to Mr. Innocent over here, who's just happily picking herbs for his nice and simple gathering quest, and suddenly he's like, holy fuck! Essentially that feeling when you have to go get something as simple as popo tongues, but then a Tigrex rips your head off. Chief! But it can happen at any time. You could be hunting your monster, and you go crashing through somebody who's hunting their own monster. Those 2 monsters start fighting, turf war system turn up to 11, and then the 2 hunters are stood there like, sup? Hey, you hunting that? Yeah, I am. Are you hunting that? Oh, yeah, me too. This is awkward. Wanna hunt them both together? Yeah, okay, sure. Or you could do it separately, but I like the idea of there's just a population of hunters living their day-to-day lives in just this big, single, open world, and there's no, like, rigmarole to activate it. You just get very smoothly, naturally phased in and out, so that unless, again, you turn off the setting and want yourself just by yourself, you just are put into this world, not some kind of joining, loading process. Though, of course, you could choose to play with a group of people you know if you so wanted. That would be really, really cool to kind of make it smoothly play without entering sort of MMO-y territory and having thousands of people running around all doing the same thing. Because that's the fine line right there. Good, because like, yeah, no, alright. But the actual fine line is making that openness feel, well, right without crossing into sort of artificially MMO-y territory. Because I can't deny there is an appeal in going up to the quest board and sort of, there would be specific ones as the story progresses. Sure, you have to go find something, hunt something, discover something, investigate something somewhere, and it might take you from point to point across the map as you traverse, but I like the idea of sort of dynamically generated, there is a request from random person in town who wants you to bring him X monster bit. But you can't just pull that piece of paper off the wall and go, "Oh, piece of paper, give me access to an instance of the forest where I will find this monster." No, you have to just go, okay, I know that it lives in these two environments. I'm gonna head out, go to the forest. If he's not there, alright, I'll have a look around. Oh, okay, can't find this creature. I've tried luring him out in the ways that I know how, but, you know, he's not biting. Okay, let's travel over to the west. Oh, is that one in the distance? Oh, it is! He's currently battling a Diablos. I will let them finish their bout, and then I will strike, because if you're having this persistent openness, these monsters are just there, don't have this artificial sort of, "Oh, I've been on the map for a little bit too long now, I'm gonna go find somewhere and despawn." You could actually have monsters naturally hunt each other. This large monster turf warage again turned up to 11, but you might come across just the corpse of an Anjanath and be like, well, I guess that's Radlos markings across him. Interesting. And that would be really fun. Again, that dynamic world turned up even further beyond what we now have, which is still incredibly living and breathing, let's be honest here. So I really do like that idea of you just get general goals to work towards, but you can't just summon the requirements for them by loading into a specific timed hunt, and then you just try and find it and make it happen. But that is kind of a key there, timed hunt. A big part of Monster Hunter is the hunt time. But I think that inherently solves itself too. You just start the timer when you engage the monster for the first time, and then once the timer runs out, the monster will flee or lose interest or however you spin it and be gone, at least for now. And in that case, I think you can justify the "okay, goodbye" aspect of it. And what I like about this more openness is you can really enhance the tracking and the traversal part of things. Because currently the hunt is load into fight arena, walk straight to target and start fighting, you kinda do take away from that aspect of being a hunter, which is the majority of being a hunter, which is finding and getting to the prey. If moving through the world was a little bit trickier, and by that I mean required more skill input from a person, maybe a little bit of a traversal system, make actually finding it a lot more, well, involved. Maybe you have to pay attention to the environment. Maybe you have to notice the auger flies growing red so a large monster was nearby. Maybe there is tracks, but they're not glowing for you in scout flies. Maybe you actually make the whole locating your prey a big part of the game, something deeply satisfying, a proper investigation. Hell, that's not even that far off from the initial test footage. They wanted the lighting system to be so different and dark and more atmospheric so that if you ended up in a cave of even just basic Jagras, that's still quite an intense experience. You need to find light, you're going to get swarmed, and just little set moments like that that make existing in this dangerous wild world, well, actually feel more of a dangerous wild world. So it's a big deal if on your little instance of the world someone's like, "Oh my god, I found an Elder Dragon, guys! I actually tracked one down!" And everyone's like, "Oh cool, whereabouts are you? We're on our way!" And suddenly this huge group of hunters is zeroing in on your location. Unless you have to answer the question of what happens if all 16 are in the same place fighting the same monster, and, well, I guess there's nothing stopping that, right? You could certainly have artificial limiters on everyone coalescing into the exact same place, but if the entire lobby chooses to ignore their own personal goals and comes just absolutely zerg the monster you're fighting, I mean, there's nothing stopping, if you imagine Monster Hunter as real, 16 hunters fighting the same thing to begin with, is there? It's not the end of the world, but yes, in a game sense, it probably would make the, well, experience not that fun, so that is definitely something that I am like, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe that's a problem, maybe that is where this falls down, but again, I'm not well, the game developer here, I imagine there would be ways around any given barrier like that if the pros are worth it. But perhaps I am entering too much into the territory of it would just be a spin-off game at this point, and yeah, perhaps indeed it would. But also, imagine a huge, epic, open-world RPG as we've come to know them, like your Witcher, like your Skyrim, but Monster Hunter World. That'd be pretty cool, but no, that's very much beside the point. I just essentially feel like very much as open as possible is what they want for the world of Monster Hunter. And I kind of want to explore how that would happen, and if it indeed would be, well, worth it. And I'd like to pass that question over to you guys, because at this point I'm kind of just rambling a little bit. So I'd love to know, would you like all the maps to just be one big map, to have that connected open feel? Or would it just sort of be, that's not really why I play Monster Hunter, I just want to have cool Monster Hunter fights, and I don't really need the world itself to be as fleshed out as possible. I just want my stabby experience to be as enjoyable as possible, and there's nothing wrong with that. As I said, my love for Monster Hunter, sure, I enjoy the fights, but it's the nature of it, the environment of it, the ecosystem of it, the way the actual world is built on a lore level. And for me, the Ultimate Monster Hunter is that aspect really fleshed out and explored and made as deep as possible, and tied into the mechanics of the game as deep as possible. But I know that is probably not the majority, and certainly not for everyone. So let me know what your thoughts are. But for now, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I will see you soon. A goodbye.
Rage Gaming with the video float.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you, even though the outro's no longer that kind of relevant. But the new one's being worked on, and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.